to say something about the system, about the social structure, about prejudice, about people, about behavior. Comedy is not successful unless it deals with even Laurel and Hardy.
Hospitals preparing, and the government announced there'll be a temporary new one here at the Excel Conference Centre in London's Docklands, with room for 4,000 patients. More will be created at other locations. The planning's on a big scale, but the NHS will need every bed it can find. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Anyone in your household has one of those two symptoms, then you should stay at home for 14 days. You should not go out, even to buy food or essentials, other than for exercise, and in that case, at a safe distance from others. Even if you don't have symptoms, and if no one in your household has symptoms, there is more that we need you to do now. So, second, to stop non-essential contact with others and to stop all unnecessary travel.
If I can return to this point about the virus is not trying to kill you. Viruses, like other creatures or parts of creatures, are trying to get as deeply into the future as they can get.
Because it's coming.
In one way, I suppose, maybe culturally, this could be, when we look back, an extreme event that was necessary in order to shake people out of their narcissism and egocentric ways that have developed over the 20 years with the technology.
The truth is, we just don't know yet. This emergency is likely to go on well beyond March 29th. It could go on for months into the summer. People to come together as a nation by staying apart from each other. People to come together as a nation by staying apart from each other. 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 The most basic messages of washing your hands properly and practicing good hygiene around sneezing and coughing are still the most important. But as hard as it is, we need to keep our physical distance to stop the virus. Technology can help too.
First time since World War II.
Hey there, old-timer. How you doing today?
But tonight Americans are finding ways to stay connected in this new reality. In North Carolina, Carly Boyd came to show her grandfather she's now engaged. This sweet life moment, a reminder we are all separated together.
Universal basic income, it does feel as though that might be the only real way to get money directly to people.
They are saying this is going to take a really big economic bazooka, even bigger than at wartime.
Yeah, and much more than Rishi Sunak announced earlier this week. And we're going to hear from the Chancellor again today, and we expect that to focus more on workers rather than just businesses and the idea of wages. A completely new system at the same time as trying to deal with all these other things is quite a hard task.
This is so big economically that we are going to have to restructure our economy in the a way that we did have to restructure it a decade or so ago after the credit crunch.
Question as to, after you've done that for such a long time, how much can you actually roll back?
The models not only looked at what's happening during this current outbreak, but with respiratory diseases, the respiratory disease that comes to us in the winter.
41,000 infections and more than 3,000 deaths there. There are nearly 18,500 cases and 1,433 fatalities that have been recorded in Iran. Meanwhile, in Spain, over 18,000 infections and more than 1,000 deaths reported there. Well, Germany now has over 16,000 confirmed cases, 44 deaths in Germany, while the US has recorded more than 14,000 cases and 205 deaths.
People have now lost their lives in Italy in the space of 4 weeks. The healthcare system now collapsed, one of the most sophisticated healthcare systems in Europe. 8.8% of the people here who've been diagnosed with COVID-19 are frontline medical staff. It really is a desperate situation. Meanwhile, the country remains on lockdown, very strict measures in place for people around the country.
Thank you all for being here, and I have to say, I think with social distancing that the media has been much nicer. I don't know what it is, all these empty, these in-between chairs. You probably shouldn't have anybody sitting behind you either, you should probably go back, but I love it. It's so much nicer, but I shouldn't say that because you'll get me now.
Hello, Al.
Yeah, hi, Stephen.
Hi, you're an NE consultant, sir.
Yeah, so I've just come back from a shift that I finished. I think from the COVID pandemic perspective, today's shift was a lot worse than what has been happening in the days prior to today. And I'm going back again tomorrow morning. Please stay indoors for as long as you possibly can and isolate yourselves.
So I think I think, Al, sorry for interrupting, of you achieving your appeal for people to stay indoors is by you sharing with us literally what you saw tonight. So help us get inside your hospital tonight. What did you see?
So at the moment, all the emergency departments in the country, we've had to divide them into two parts. So every department is divided. One is being kept separately for COVID virus infections. One of the biggest thing that, or somewhat surprising thing that I've seen, that two of the patients that had different symptoms like abdominal pains and stuff, as we looked deeply into it, we realized that they could be suspected positive cases as well. Our wards are filling very, very quickly at the moment. So far it hasn't got to a stage that we don't have a ventilator for everyone. But we're mentally preparing ourselves for a stage where we'll have to make the call that who gets to have a ventilator and who doesn't. As NHS professionals, we've always been trained to fight tooth and nail for every single life or every single human being that comes through the door, and we try to do our level best. But right now we are facing a situation we won't be able to do our level best. We won't be able to give all the treatment or management that we can possibly give them. And I had a fairly youngish kind of a patient today, in their 40s. And it was an extreme helplessness, but because of this new virus coming out and we don't have any antivirals or anything to treat it with, we can only give supportive measures, and you can see your patient sliding down, but there's nothing much that you can do about it. So the only reason we want people to stay in is that before things get that bad, or you get to a stage where you're that poorly, why not just take precautionary measures, self-isolate? We are going to try our level best, whatever we can do. Once a patient becomes really unwell with this particular virus, there isn't much that we can do. We don't have any trials suggestive of any antiviral drugs working against this virus. We won't have a vaccine for months to come. And I understand that it is more likely for the elderly people to get a lot worse with this particular virus. But having said that, if you only look at the Chinese number, 0.2% 10 to 19-year-old, 0.2% from there onwards every decade, and 0.4% in your 40s. So up to 50-year-olds, we've got 1.2% mortality, which means 1.2% death.
Oh, it's going down.
Which every 8 patients who need the machine, who need the ventilator, we will have one. And the consultants who are in charge of those patients, which has never happened to us before, will have to stand there and pick the patient who will get the ventilator and let the other 7 go. That's the kind of medicine that's never been practiced in NHS before. And
let the other 7
will have to do that.
Let the other 7 go where?
Not treat, not ventilate them.
Go to a ward for a different type of treatment?
No, they probably will not survive. So this is a virus that completely causes chaos in your lungs. You definitely need oxygen. If you are really unwell, if you develop pneumonia with it, you will need a ventilator. All the guidelines that we're getting from the Royal Colleges is that you need to put on the patient on ventilator early. That's the evidence that's coming from Italy as well, that put them on ventilator early. So it's a choice if you've got 4 or 5 or 6 people and you've got one ventilator, you will have to make a choice that which one has got the best chances of survival. Apologize to the rest of the families and the patients. And I'm not trying to paint a very pessimistic. To keep it, the peak, to a minimum level, so we have a ventilator for everyone who needs it.
And do you think we're already past that point, or is there still a chance?
No, we still have a chance, but I mean, the problem we have is that because the test that we do is not very sensitive, it only identifies 70% of the people. So you can have a negative test, and you can still have the virus. It could be one of those 30%.
I didn't know that. Why?
The test is called RT-PCR. It's a technical term, reverse transcript polymerase chain reaction. So particularly if you're in the early part of the disease, there's a likelihood that the test will completely miss out on picking up the virus.
Good morning. Europe continues to struggle to contain the coronavirus. More countries are now ordering non-essential businesses to close. And when you think it can't get any worse for Italy, it does.
Patients on life support in an Italian hospital. So too is the country's medical system. In the last day, 627 people have died, making it not only Italy's deadliest day, but the deadliest day worldwide since the outbreak began. Advice from Europe's epicenter: flatten the curve.
If you slow it down enough, you can take care of people. Otherwise, any disease will be overwhelmed.
You're the health professional. You're saying we're still on the cusp of something very, very bad.
This hasn't started, Liam. I don't want to be alarmist because this is something we can control, but the world needs to wake up.
That's one of the highest, if not the highest, in the world. But this is going to be really tough. I mean, these things are going to break our hearts, but it's not going to break our spirit.
Are you frightened?
It's not my job to do that.
Are
It's
you
my job to be...
overwhelmed?
Not at all. Look, in situations like this, you've just got to act on the information, make decisions, and communicate clearly. I can't control what I can't control, but I can control what our government does.
Following the Chief Medical Officer's guidance, the NHS has identified up to 1.5 million people in England who face the highest risk of being hospitalised by the virus. The NHS will be contacting these people in the coming days, urging them to stay at home for a period of at least 12 weeks.
New testing centres are open, and it is likely that once that backlog starts to be reduced, we will see a further increase in the number of positive cases of coronavirus in this country.
As you saw there, the Chief Executive of the Health Service, Paul Reid, said we were going to see the Health Service under stress like we had never seen before, but he wanted to assure people that the Health Service was planning, was preparing, and he said field hospitals were being set up. Yeah, we're in our third week now, and then if you consider that the previous 2 weeks before that were when the schools and universities closed and when we started the social distancing. So in effect, we're really 5 weeks into this now. And what's happening outside? What are the images that you're seeing on the news there? Well, the images that we see are very depressing indeed. We're seeing images of coffins being taken away in army trucks, purely because the local cemeteries don't have capacity anymore. We're hearing about people dying in intensive care on their own and not surrounded by families, which is really, really heartbreaking to see.
Technically, it's a body temperature of more than 37.8 degrees Celsius, or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you've not got a thermometer, basically you will feel hot, and your chest and back would be hot if someone touched you. If you have either of these symptoms, then you need to stay at home for 7 days. And if you live with other people, they need to stay at home for at least 14 days. But if your symptoms get worse or they don't go away, if you live in the UK, then you need to contact the online NHS 111 coronavirus service. If you live abroad, then call your local healthcare provider.
All the WHO directives have been inspired by the Chinese experience, to the point that they are in part responsible for the situation that we see now.
The measures look set to stay.
Yes, that's right. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez will take that plan to extend the state of emergency another couple of weeks and into the middle of April.
You might think it's a cold, and it could be, but COVID-19 could escalate. Here's what you need to know. Just to be clear, a mild case of COVID-19 is not like a mild cold. The symptoms will still be pretty severe. Anything less than needing oxygen
for each level of severity. It can take as few as 2 or as many as 14 days after being exposed to the novel coronavirus for the first symptom to develop. This is when it might feel like a cold or the common flu. Many patients develop fevers early on. The World Health Organization China Joint Mission saw that about 88% of people who had COVID-19 had a fever.
This just hit you like a truck.
Yeah, I think the misconception is that people are thinking that the young can't get it, but yeah, indeed, it is bad virus, and I think a lot of young people can get it and will get it. Well, I've flu before, and I think instantly you know it's not flu just from the fever. The fever's up to 40 degrees and it's slightly higher, which for me was very uncomfortable.
I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I like data. I like real, objective facts. But there's something a little funny about this coronavirus. And we talked about this yesterday, the fact that normally viruses affect the very young, the immunocompromised, the elderly. And, you know, what's interesting is this one doesn't tend to affect the young much at all. In fact, these immune systems that are very immature, they don't have all the antibodies and all the other components that they need to fight the viruses, the bacteria, the funguses. But they're actually doing okay with this virus, almost like it's been modified to do this, okay? Maybe we're supposed to just believe it just happened by chance. But then also the interesting about this virus is normally it takes, by the time your mucous membranes are already swelling up from the virus and we're getting all these symptoms of congestion and cold and cough, you know, that's when finally we have a high enough viral load that you can be contagious. This one, you're actually very contagious early. I think the gap was almost like 5 days last I heard. So it's made for rapid spread. It's made to only affect people that are more disabled or immunocompromised and elderly. Also interesting, China's a very large country, okay, north to south, about 3,400 miles, about 3,250 miles east to west. And in this mammoth-sized country, right here sits Wuhan, where the outbreak was. Well, isn't it interesting that the actual Wuhan Institute, the Virology, Virus Research Institute, is like right here. And right here, only 20 miles apart, is the fish market.
11 days to reach 200,000 coronavirus cases, then just 4 days to reach 300,000, and then 2 days to hit 400,000 cases. That was today. And that shows, Sophie, the exponential growth of this virus globally. And it's
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease, that is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes. Shopping for basic necessities as infrequently as possible. One form of exercise a day, for example, a run, walk or cycle, alone or with members of your household. Any medical need to provide care or to help a vulnerable person, and travelling to and from work, but only where this is absolutely necessary and cannot be done from home.
The more we follow the rules, the sooner we will stop the spread. And so everybody has a responsibility to follow those rules and, where possible, to stay at home.
The Taoiseach has asked the Irish people to stay at home.
Is absolutely essential. And social gatherings of individuals outdoors should be no more than 4 people, unless all are from the same household. All non-essential indoor visits to other persons' homes should be avoided. All crowded places, including public amenities, should be avoided as well.
And no unnecessary travel now or during the Easter break. All non-essential retail outlets are to close, as well as marts, markets and libraries.
Guys, you can't stay on the green. Can you all go home? Can you all go home, please? It's not a holiday.
Medical institutions, pharmacies, stores, banking institutions, transportation institutions, as well as government and municipal authorities will continue work. That will be a 1 week free of work. That is what we are doing to stop the disease from spreading. We need to care about ourselves, about our relatives and families. Let's be disciplined. Let's be responsible. Believe me, the safest way is to stay at home.
Prevent in as much as we can people passing this disease from one person to another.
Break.
This is your pilot speaking. My name is Adrian Oberhensli. I'm working from home today. This is your pilot speaking. My name is Adrian Oberhensli. I'm working from home today. This is your